began when their kayaks were found in the dark offshore.
Rescue teams have found the body of a kayaker who went missing. Search for a missing kayaker. The Coast Guard called off the search near Destin for a kayaker who's been missing since Saturday, from where a kayaker went missing on Sunday.
Is continuing to search for a kayaker who went missing over the weekend.
So finding a missing kayaker.
They had an extensive search which lasted about 3 hours today, but an unfortunate outcome. An ominous sight above Freeman Lake in Chelmsford. A kayak capsized. The person inside nowhere to be found.
Okay, we need to talk. Hey guys, welcome back to KC Kayak Fishing. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Crystal, and today we are going to dive into kayak fishing safety and kayak safety in general. This is something that is super important to Kyle and I. We take our safety on the water very seriously. We have 4 kids that we need to come home to, and so today we are going to go over with you all the things that we do and the tools that we have to keep ourselves safe out on the water. As some of you may have noticed over these last few years, the sport of kayak fishing has exploded, especially where we are here on the west coast of Canada. And that means that there's more people going out there. They are diving headfirst into the sport of kayak fishing. There's more people out there on the water, wanting to enjoy nature and just getting out there. And that's a beautiful thing. However, that being said, the more people out there doing kayak fishing, sadly, the more incidences there have been. There have been more reports of accidents out on the water, and unfortunately, some of those resulting in death or kayak fishermen and fisherwomen going missing and never being found. In no way, shape, or form is this meant to point fingers or, put down the people who sadly had lost their lives while kayak fishing. Our condolences go out to the loved ones left behind who are grieving. Definitely a heavy, heavy subject that we are touching on here. However, that being said, some of the cases could have been preventable if the right safety measures were taken. And that is why this video is so important to us, why the safety aspect of kayak fishing and kayaking is so important to us. Guys, we want to be totally honest with you too. We are by no means professionals. We are just simply a couple that loves to get out there and kayak fish, and we want our trips to be successful and safe. So we are going to give you as many tips as possible when it comes to kayak fishing safety. The first thing we're going to do is talk to you guys about how we plan a day of fishing. That also includes the apps that we use. After that, we will jump upstairs and go into our garage and go over all the gear with you. When we have a particular day in mind that we want to fish, we are constantly checking the weather right up until the day that we are going to go. I can't stress this enough. We double check the weather. We triple check the weather. We check the weather. We check on like 4 different sites. We check that weather nonstop until the minute that we leave. One of the apps that we rely on quite heavily for weather is called the Windy app. There's a free version, which we use. There's also a paid version. The only difference is the paid version gives you the long-term forecast, kind of irrelevant to us, so we don't pay for that. Also, though, as you know, weather predictions and weather forecasts aren't always reliable. So like we said before, we are constantly checking for updates, and we recheck that weather a couple times the morning that we are leaving. Another app that is very important to us that we find very useful is Garmin Navionics. It not only shows us location, it's really handy when you're fishing a new location. It also has its own weather forecast attached to it, and more importantly, also shows the current of the water, water current, and wind, and tides. One thing to know is that with the different apps that we are using, often the forecasts are all a little bit different. So what we typically do is we take the worst one. We take the worst run, we run with it, and we expect the worst. And then sometimes we're pleasantly surprised. Another app that we use and rely on quite a bit is called the 360 app. Once again, there's a free version, there's a paid version. We use the free one, that's all we really need. And I do have to say, this app does depend on your cell phone provider and reception. That being said, I think we've only had one location where it didn't work, so it's quite reliable for us. And what it does is it shows you on a GPS map, even out in the water, where that person is. And so I can literally see Kyle. He'll show me how fast he's going. It says he's biking because of the pedal movement on the kayaks, but it'll show me he's going like 5 kilometers an hour, and I'll see him out in the ocean. This is a really helpful app because I can see where he is, and if for whatever reason his boat suddenly stopped moving for a long period of time, or he was drifting way, way out where I know he wouldn't be fishing, then I know that there's a problem. So it's very helpful to have a visual and see where the person is that is kayak fishing. The app is also helpful if you have a husband like I do who likes to go way over the speed limit. It even tracks speed limits in your vehicle as well. So I can see if Kyle is being bad. It lets me know. It alerts me. It actually even tells me how many risks he takes while he's driving, and if it was a safe drive or an unsafe drive. The other thing that is kind of fun, I don't know how accurate it truly is. When we're out on our boats for hours and hours, I'm always curious to see, like, wow, we went really far today. How many kilometers did we do? My Fitbit actually won't work. It's weird. I've even tried putting it on my ankle and it won't track the movement. However, as long as I have my phone with me and the 360 app is on, it will track the kilometers that we do. And so there's been days where I'm like, man, why are my legs so sore? Why are they so tired? And then I'm like, wow, we did like 28 kilometers total today. So another kind of fun, cool feature. And that segues into our next conversation. Something that Kyle and I always do is we come up with a plan for our day, what time we're launching, when we plan to be back, and we always tell someone. We always let someone know where we are launching from. We check in with them the moment that we are in our boats and launching offshore. You know, phone call or text, hey, just leaving the boat launch right now. Things are looking good. And when we are out there, if things change, say we said we'd be back up by 5, but we're having a great time, maybe we've got one more limit to fill, we don't change the plan unless we can get a hold of our person and say, actually, you know what, we've changed our plan. We're going to come in a little bit later. We're going to be in at 6. If we can't get a hold of someone to let them know that we've changed our game plan, our butt's off the water when we said we're off the water. So important, you guys. Communication is also number one, because if you don't tell people where you are, what you're doing, and you go missing, it can be a really long time before help is sent your way. And often it's too late. So now that we've talked about the apps that we use, we're going to talk about fishing conditions. So what is safe fishing conditions? Well, Kyle and I feel that that's different for everybody. It depends on the kayak you have. It depends on your skill level, your confidence, whether you're fishing freshwater or saltwater, because those are two very different things. And for us, being primarily saltwater fishermen, we definitely have a limit on wind speed that we are comfortable with being out in kayaks. So for Kyle and I would say 10 to 12K winds is our maximum. I mean, not only is it way more risky, it's also not fun. It's not fun to fish in those conditions. It's hard to troll. It's hard to have your jig on the bottom when you're jigging, and it's just not enjoyable anymore. And it's also way more risky. You've got constant wind waves coming at you, and there's just a lot more chance that you could flip or something bad could happen. And so for us, that is our maximum wind speed that we are willing to go out in. Another thing that is commonly overlooked, especially with saltwater kayak fishing, is the current. If you get yourself stuck in a strong current, it is not going to be a fun time. Another thing is looking at the tides, because that also affects current. So definitely something to pay attention to. Just because the winds are calm doesn't mean that the current is. One thing to keep in mind is that current is measured in knots. And so 1 knot is equal to 1.15 miles per hour. So why is current speed so important? Well, here's the thing. In kayaks, especially our kayaks, we have a maximum that we are able to do, a maximum speed. It depends on the shape of your boat, the prop that you have, and in our Old Town PDL 120s, 3-4 miles per hour is our maximum. And when I say maximum, I mean like you are working hard, really hard. Your legs are burning when you are going 3.5 to 4 miles per hour in our boats. So if you have a 3-4 knot current, you're not going anywhere. You are fishing in one direction. And let me tell you, it's a scary feeling being out on the water and you're pedaling as hard as you can and you're not moving, like you're not going anywhere. Especially if weather conditions change, that happens. Sometimes the forecast is wrong and you want to get off that water as quickly as possible and you're stuck in current. It has happened to us a time or two, and it's not a fun feeling, you guys. So please make sure that you are also paying attention to not just the wind, but also the tides and the current speed. So for Kyle and I, you guys, our maximum, and I mean maximum current speed that we are willing to fish in is between 1 to 2 knots. And that's it. That's all we're willing to push it. Another important safety measure that is taken by us, and we recommend to you guys, is the buddy system. So if you are going to go out kayak fishing, whether it's on a lake even or saltwater like we do, we recommend going out with a partner. That being said, I'm sure you guys have noticed there are videos where Kyle is fishing solo. This is something that you do have to factor in your confidence, your ability, your skills. And Kyle is a very confident, skilled angler, and he feels comfortable doing that. However, that being said, he also he doesn't push the limits of the weather condition. If he's going out fishing on his own, he's making sure that the current's good, the wind speeds are lower, and it's a flat, calm day. He's not pushing those limits when he's out there on his own. And then for someone like myself, I'm a somewhat skilled angler, but I just don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of being out on the ocean by myself because God forbid something does happen. So I do not do it. And that's okay. That is what I'm comfortable with. And one thing that I always tell my kids even is if something feels a little unsettling in that gut, it's not feeling good, don't do it. All right, so you just got your first fishing kayak, you're excited, you want to get out there on the water, but maybe you don't know anyone else who kayak fishes and you don't have a buddy to go out with. One of the great things is social media. There are lots of kayak fishing groups out there. We have a large group for Vancouver Island, and it is a great way to meet other people who are not only interested in the same thing as you, but people who are also looking for a buddy to go out on the water with. And it's just it's a much safer way to fish, having someone out there with you. We highly recommend checking out your Facebook pages and seeing if you can find a local kayak fishing group to follow. So the last thing and the easiest thing that you can do to ensure your safety is not just check the weather apps, but check the weather with your eyes. And I know it sounds silly, but there have been times where Kyle and I have driven more than an hour to go kayak fishing, and we get to our location and we take one look and go, the weatherman was wrong. If it looks bad out there, it's much worse than you think it is. If you're looking at the ocean from the shore and it's looking a little rough, then it's probably really rough. So, a lot of this is common sense, but just use your eyes. Check that water. There's been lots and lots of times where we have turned around after driving an hour and we haven't even unloaded our boats, and it's super disappointing, but it's not worth your life. It's not worth your life for a day of fishing. All right, guys, now let's go talk some safety gear. All right, guys, the first thing we're going to talk about is an obvious one, but your PFD. Super, super important. You'd be surprised how many people that we come across on the water, in boats and kayaks alike, that are not wearing their life jacket. This one, for obvious reasons, is a very important piece of equipment that Kyle and I never, ever, ever go out without. Even if we're only, 20 feet offshore, we wear it because things happen, and they're going to happen when you're not wearing your life jacket. This is the NRS Zoya life jacket. This one is very, very comfortable for kayak fishing. As you can see, the back is mesh and this part rests above the kayak seat. So that being said, another really important thing when you are shopping for a life jacket, we highly recommend that you go and actually try one on, put a bulky sweater on underneath it, put on a jacket, and make sure that it's comfortable to move around in. Not all life jackets are made the same, and there are ones like this that are much more comfortable when you're sitting in a kayak seat. Can't push this enough that you definitely want to try your life jacket on before you purchase it, because if it's not comfortable, you're not going to wear it. All right, guys, so on our life jackets, we also carry a knife for emergencies, as well as a whistle for obvious reasons. If you're by yourself or you flip and your fishing buddy's further away, obviously a whistle to alert someone. And then the knife, I do want to talk a little bit more about the knife. This is a dive knife. As you can see, only one side is sharp. The other side is dull. Well, it's not dull, but it's not serrated. And then it's got the blunt tip. The blunt tip is super important. The purpose of this knife is only for emergencies. We do not use it unless we have an emergency, so that it stays nice and sharp and it's ready if we shall need it. In the event of an emergency, say you do flip your boat, you get wrapped up in some of your line, you can quickly cut yourself away. The blunt tip is nice because you can put it between your skin and the line and it won't poke into you or stab you. So we always carry this. We check it every year to make sure it's still in good condition, there's no rust, and we never use it. We only leave it on there for emergencies, like I said, so it stays nice and sharp. All right, so the next thing that we are going to talk about is what we wear on the water. Kyle and I both use dry suits with base layers, typically from January till about May. There does come a point where the dry suit actually does become a hazard when it's quite warm out and you're sweating quite a bit. As you know, they do not breathe. They are completely watertight. And you're actually sweating more than you're drinking, and you can become very quickly dehydrated. So typically January till May is when we wear them in the colder weather. I will show you my base layers here. So these are the base layers that we wear underneath the dry suits. They are called Carhartt Force. They're nice and thin. They are a wool polyester blend. One thing to avoid, guys, is the cotton. You do not want to wear cotton. It does not have any insulating properties to it. Also, if it becomes damp or wet, it is extremely cold. It does not keep you warm. So this is what we use. Very affordable, super comfortable. These are just some nice wool socks that I wear under my booties, which I will show you. These are my Aqualung boots that just go over my dry suit. They're more of a neoprene, but they are insulated, so they keep my feet actually quite nice and warm. Once again, make sure you're trying all this stuff on. I mean, buying online is super handy and super easy, but you want to make sure that everything fits really well and is super comfortable. All right, so this is my dry suit. It is a woman's dry suit, so it is tailored to a woman's shape. It is made by NRS and it's called the Nomad. We will actually do a full review on both of our dry suits at some point, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it. I'll just show you some basic stuff. Being a ladies' dry suit, it's very nice that it has this zipper and it runs right across your backside, so if you do need to use the bathroom, it's tricky, I'm not gonna lie, but it is doable. So obviously a great feature to have, and just another source of protection. If I were to fall into the water, I would be completely dry, which is in turn going to keep you warmer and give you more time. One thing to add about the dry suits, you guys, is that obviously they will keep you dry. If I fall in the water, I am going to be dry, but not necessarily warm. That's why we wear the base layers, to add that extra protection and that extra warmth. Often when we're fishing in the winter months, we also add a toque. We've got gloves, we've got all the gear to try and keep our body temperature up and warm if we were to fall into the water. Why is a dry suit so important to us? In our climate, a dry suit is very important to us because our climate is cold. The water is cold, unlike places, say, like Florida, where it's much warmer temperatures and much warmer water temperatures throughout the whole year. The average water temperature or ocean temperature here in the wintertime is only 6 degrees Celsius, you guys. That is really cold. In the summertime, it jumps up a little bit, but it's still only 11 degrees Celsius. And so the thing about a dry suit is, if you're not wearing one and you fall out of your boat or your boat flips, say in the middle of August, that water's still darn cold. The key is to get back in your boat. But that being said, even if you get back in the boat, you need that outside temperature to be nice and warm to help dry you off, to bring your core body temperature back up. So in the wintertime, if you were to flip your boat and fall in the ocean, the temperature of the water is only, a little bit colder than in the summertime, but it's the outside air. The outside air is cold, your body's wet, you're not going to dry off, you're not going to warm up, and that's when the hypothermia sets in. And that's if you can get back into your boat. Which leads us to our next conversation about self-rescue. So one of the most important things as a kayak angler is being able to get back into your boat. So one of the most important things you're going to want to learn when you buy that kayak is how to get back into your boat. One of the ways you can do this is by simply watching videos and going out there and practicing flipping your kayak. One of the things that Kyle and I plan on doing is actually making a rescue video. We want to take our boats out in the summer and film us flipping them and getting back into them. We haven't got there yet, so we will have some videos in the link down below that you can check out. And like I said, it's really just watching and practicing and getting a feel for it. So in a panic situation, you have that working memory of what to do and what steps to do so that you're not panicking. So there are tools that you can purchase that will make self-rescue easier. This is a rescue ladder by Lewis Products. And the nice thing about this is it's not only a ladder, but for someone like me, my boat actually, like when it's geared up, it weighs more than me. So flipping it back over to get into may not necessarily be as easy as one thinks. So this also gives me something to grab onto so that I can flip that boat over a lot easier. And it does provide a step for your foot, gives you a foothold. I'll just show you here that you can put your foot on and get some leverage to get up and over. So self-rescue, one of the most important steps is getting your kayak flipped over. I mean, no kayak is perfectly watertight. The longer that it stays flipped over, the more chance and the more likely that it is going to take on water, which it's going to be heavier and harder to flip over. The other thing is time is of the essence, especially if you're not wearing a dry suit. Even though it's summer, that water is cold. You want to act as quickly as possible. So a tool like a rescue ladder is going to make that easier and faster. In the front hatch here, we also store some more safety tools that I will show you. So attached to the hatch line, I'll just unclip it here. Oh. We've got a first aid kit. Super important. You never know what's going to happen with hooks flying around. We've got our throw bag and a bilge pump. So as you guys saw, we do have a bilge pump. Because no kayak is ever fully watertight, we carry this with us at all times. It's made by Pelican. It works amazing. We have tried it. It has been tested and it works great. So if you do get water, say in your hatch, you can pump that water out. Very, very crucial to have on any kayak.
Another crucial piece of equipment that we always carry with us is an extra prop. Always be prepared for the worst. You never know what could break or what could happen when you're out on the water. Another thing that I actually don't have on my boat right now, but I always carry with me when we go out is a paddle, because you never know if your prop is not working or you can't, for whatever reason, fix it when you're out on the water. You need an alternate way to maneuver your boat and get back in. So this one here, for obvious reasons, we want to be visible to other boaters out on the water. You can get smaller kayak flags, taller ones like we have. We have this absolute 6-foot tall monstrosity, so that when we are out there in the swells, we are visible. We've had good feedback. We've had other boaters say that they could see us very well, even with the swells. So that is definitely what you want. Lastly, guys, we are going to talk communication. So here is a VHF radio. When we are out on the water together, one of us always has it. When Kyle is out on his own, he always carries it with him. It is just a great tool to have, a great way to communicate with other boaters or the Coast Guard should an emergency arise. This one is a Cobra. Kyle has tested it when he's out on the water with his buddies. It seems to work just fine. It is waterproof and it also floats, which is also very nice to have. However, we do keep it attached to us at all times, but it is a good little unit and seems to do the job. When Kyle and I fish together, we also have these two-way radios or walkie-talkies, and they're very effective. It's really nice to have them so that we're not always getting interference from other marine channels. We can just talk back and forth to ourselves. When we fish, we're not always like right side by side. There's times where we're like half a kilometer apart, and things happen. There's times where like I'm wrapped around my prop, or you know, I've got a big fish and I need help, or something like that comes up. It's just really nice to be able to communicate with your fishing buddy if you need to. Last but not least, one of the most obvious ones, we do keep our cell phones on us. That being said, we do have waterproof cases for them that are tethered to the inside of our life jacket so that we're not dropping it in the water, because that would really suck. And like I said, the 360 app, you need your phone on you so people can see where you are. And so you can check in with people, check in with your person. If you're coming off the water late or you're coming off the water early, super essential to have with us on the water, always, always, always. All right, guys, I really hope that you found all of that very useful and helpful in the way of getting prepped and ready to be safe out on the water in your kayak. As a reminder, we are going to put links in the description to all the equipment and gear that we went over today. And we also are going to put some links to some rescue videos down below. So please check those out. And, you know, I just want to be honest here. Me and Kyle are not trying to come from like a point of criticism. We're not trying to criticize anyone. You know, we've made mistakes. We are absolutely not perfect. Before we got our dry suits, we were probably fishing out there in conditions without dry suits, and we shouldn't have been. No one's perfect. It's all about just taking the steps and the precautions to be as safe as you can be. We love kayak fishing. We want to see this sport grow, especially on Vancouver Island, where we are located. And honestly, with the amount of accidents that have happened, I don't know if it will grow. And that's why we wanted to make this video. We don't want people to shy away from this sport and shy away from, you know, the thrill of kayak fishing because of the safety factor, because there are things you can do to be prepared and to be as safe as you can be. As always, thank you for watching. Please feel free to comment if you have any more suggestions that we haven't thought of. We are open ears and we love to hear from you guys. We really appreciate all the feedback that we get. And as always, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Catch you later.